Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Lead with Emotional Intelligence, today sponsored by the Workforce Development Board of Ventura County, who you will hear from in just a moment. My name is Anna. I'm the digital media and event strategist here at the California Employers Association. And again, we just want to thank you for taking time out of your Thursday to spend with us in training today. Before we get into today's content, just a couple details to go over with you, especially if this is your first time training with us. So as you see, your audio is muted for today's presentation, but there are going to be lots of opportunities and invitations to engage during today's training. If you do have questions about the content, you can enter them into the chat box at any time, and we'll do our best to address them as we go. I'll be here the whole time supporting Keisha, so go ahead and just put those questions into the chat box for us, and I will do my best to support her. Handouts will be dropped into the chat box shortly. So once you see the file name and icon pop up in the chat box, you can click it and it should download locally to your drive. If you do have any issues downloading or accessing that PDF, please just, again, ping me in the chat and I'm more than happy to troubleshoot that with you. And then as you saw when you logged on, this webinar is being recorded and the team over at Ventura County will be reaching out when that is available for review. So please make sure you are active on their email list. And then last but not least, we will be inviting you to share your feedback at the end of today's training by participating in a very brief survey. It's only 5 questions. It takes about a minute to a minute and a half to complete. But the feedback that you share with us in those 5 questions, we really do take to heart here at CEA. We share that feedback with our partners over at Ventura County, and we collectively make sure that we are meeting and hopefully exceeding your expectations with trainings like this. And this is also the way that you're able to suggest topics that you'd like to learn about in the future. So that is your opportunity to really make your voice heard. So we really encourage you to scan the QR code or click on that hyperlink at the end of today's training. Again, our training today is brought to you by our partners over at Ventura County. And today we're so happy to be joined by Roxana Gamboa, Business Solutions Specialist, who will be available to talk with you in the chat and who's going to share more about the resources available to employers like yourself in Ventura County. Hi, Roxana.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. My name is Roxana Gamboa, as Anna mentioned, and I'm a business solutions specialist with the Workforce Development Board of Ventura County. Our goal is to assist businesses and job seekers as well. So we try to make connections, and we have resources and services for both our job seekers and our businesses. We assist some of the business services that we provide are not limited to sourcing and recruiting. We participate and host job fairs. We can also provide customized hiring events, including hiring events at your place of business. We also can assist with on-the-job training subsidies, and that's where we will pay a portion of the wages while you have employees working at your place of business. You train them, and then at the end of the training program, you have a fully trained employee that is ready for you. And we can definitely chat about that more. I will put my contact information on the chat. And we also have an HR hotline that you can call and ask your HR related questions. And that is at no cost for our Ventura County businesses. So we can also provide you with financial solutions for employee training, no cost webinars such as this one. And we look forward to assisting you. And I will drop my contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Roxana, Cynthia, Colleen, Rebecca, to the entire team over at Ventura for everything that you do for employers in your county. And now I would love to introduce our trainer today. We have Keisha Hansen, who is our Learning and Development Director. So you are in great hands, and I'm going to hand it over to Keisha.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Roxana. Welcome, everybody. As Anna said, happy Thursday. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hopefully take at least one little nugget of information or just a refresher or a review. For those of you who may not be familiar with California Employers Association, very briefly, we are a human resource association. We're based in Sacramento, but we serve employers all throughout the state of California, all different industries, all different sizes. And really our goal and philosophy is to provide our employers with peace of mind We do this through our human resource compliance solutions, that HR hotline, which is such a great resource for you through the Workforce Development Board. We also offer customized trainings, either virtually or on site at your location. If you're interested in that, executive coaching, the list goes on and on. So if you're interested, give us a call at that 800 number that is specifically for you in Ventura County. We also want to provide peace of mind to our lawyers by letting you know this presentation shouldn't be relied upon as legal advice. Not really getting into a lot of compliance issues this morning, but just so you know, this is not a legal advice. If you are interested in finding a lawyer, we do partner with several lawyers throughout the state. So give us a call and hopefully we could connect you with someone in your area. So you're here probably because the topic piqued your interest. And definitely it is a time for us to be thinking of our emotions. Emotions are running high in our country, probably in your personal lives as well as your work lives. A lot of uncertainties. So what a better time than to kind of talk about what it is. Maybe you've heard of it and you're not really familiar what it is, or how you can improve emotional intelligence. Not only does it affect us in our personal lives, but it most definitely can impact the workforce as well. So we'll touch a little bit on why it matters at work and how can you build those emotionally intelligent teams. So important, again, in this day and age of, it used to be back in the day, they'd say, leave your emotions at the door. And I think we can all collectively recognize that that doesn't really happen. Our emotions do come in the door with us at work, and for many valid reasons. But how do we manage those, right? How do we manage those? How do we become more aware of those and how to regulate those emotions as they arise? So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will ask you a few questions. We'll do a few polls just to make sure that you are staying engaged. So simply put, when you ask the question, what is emotional intelligence? And you see this lovely definition of it, it really is the ability to access, control, and evaluate your emotions as they surface. So really recognizing your own feelings when they arise, and also being able to recognize those of others. If you're in a position of leadership, if you're working on a team and collaborating with a lot of employees, really just recognizing when those emotions come up, how we motivate ourselves, how do we manage our time, how do we manage our goals, how do we reach high performance levels. We really do have to know ourselves. And then managing emotions well in our relationships, whether you are a manager or you're working with colleagues or you're working with customers or vendors, you really do have to build those relationships in order to maintain relationships and maintain performance at high levels. So we'll talk a little bit about that and how it comes into play. Emotional intelligence really caught the eye of Americans back in the 90s when a psychologist named Daniel Goleman wrote an article for Time magazine and really highlighted how important emotional intelligence was, especially in the workplace. He presented a number of case studies showing how organizations that operate in emotionally intelligent ways can be more competitive and more successful. So, emotional intelligence, as we talk about it today, is really an indicator of success in the workplace and is often used to identify those top performers and top leaders. And I can tell you, I've been working at CEA for 10 years, done a lot of webinars, met with a lot of different employers, and employees really do, in general, want to do their best work when they show up at work. So emotional intelligence can play a huge part in making the difference between someone doing their best work or not being able to do their best work. So let's kind of get a gauge with you all and put up a poll. It should be coming up in a moment. Let me just get it and just see, when we talk about emotions, some of us are very in tune with our emotions. We know when something's coming up. We know what our triggers are. But for you, here we go. Can you just take a moment and think, am I in touch with my emotions? Or am I just so distracted by everything around me that maybe sometimes I'm not aware of them, and then I do or say something that I regret in anger? Maybe I yell, or my tone changes, or I become forgetful or distracted. Um, so just kind of a, estimated gauge of where you are right now, too. Yeah, I'm very in tune with my emotions, or gosh, I probably need to think a little bit more about this. Give you just a few more seconds there, and then I'll share the results. And no right or wrong, it's just where we're at right now. The great thing about emotional intelligence is you always have the ability to increase it over time and improve it. It's like a muscle, you can build it. Whereas our IQ, our intelligence quotient, kind of solidifies in our late teens, early adulthood. So that's the good news about emotional intelligence. Okay, I think everybody has shared. So kind of back and forth often. 46% of you said often. I usually notice it in the moment. So that's very good. That's a pretty good indication that you know when your feelings are coming up. And then 38%, sometimes it takes a while to realize how I feel. And I think in general, just when we're distracted and we're focused on so many things and we're rushing, because that's how I feel many times. It's hard to get in touch with our emotions. Or if we're always looking out for everybody else, um, maybe it's harder to get in tune. And then 15% of you are always aware of your emotions. So that's excellent. So feel free when we're going over some of the ways to improve in those areas, to share your wealth of experience and knowledge in those areas. Thank you for participating as well. So research suggests that our IQ, which I just touched on, which is often associated with our logical reasoning, our analytical skills, our academic performance, doesn't always guarantee superior performance in the real world. And while a high IQ may provide an advantage in specific tasks like problem solving, again, if you're an analytical thinker, I'm pretty analytical, or you do technical work, it can translate into higher job or life performance only about 20% of the time, as highlighted in this graphic, compared to people with average IQs. And why do you think that is? It's because IQ doesn't measure your interpersonal skills, your empathy, your self regulation. So many high IQ individuals may lack that social or emotional skills needed to thrive in collaborative or leadership roles. And we are in an even higher workforce where we collaborate more. It used to be where we collaborated about 30% of the time in the workplace, and then 70% of the time we were really involved in individual tasks. Now it's kind of reversed. 70% of the time, we are collaborating with other people. And as I mentioned, it can be our colleagues, it can be our supervisors, it can be interdepartmental, it can be our customers, it can be our vendors, whoever we interact with, we're interacting with a lot, we're collaborating a lot. And that probably makes sense if you think about all of the meetings you go to where we're interacting with people. So success in most real world contexts often relies more on how well people relate to others, than really technically how smart they are in isolation. Um, I find that very interesting, and it makes a lot of sense. So let's get into, so Daniel Goleman, as I mentioned, he identified that there are four domains of emotional intelligence. And as we go throughout, I might use the abbreviation EQ just because it's easier to roll off the tongue than saying emotional intelligence so many times. So it's divided into four domains, and there's actually two areas. So if you see on the left-hand side, the first area really revolves around our personal competencies. So this is all about you, right? So self-awareness, which, if you think way back in time to Socrates, it's about knowing yourself. And this is really the foundation of emotional intelligence. If you really know yourself, you know when those emotions come up, you identify what your triggers are, and how sometimes you react rather than respond. Maybe if you're too tired, or they made a commercial about it. Maybe if you're hungry, or maybe if you're just triggered emotionally that something in the past happened to you. If someone speaks in a derogatory tone, all of these things can be triggers. But the better we know ourselves, the better self-awareness we have, knowing how we are, knowing what our strengths are, knowing how we're perceived by others, then there's that opportunity for growth. There's that opportunity to improve. And usually people with high self-awareness are usually very open and receptive to feedback, right? And feedback's a whole nother webinar and training we do. But when you're open to feedback, receiving feedback from your supervisor, from your colleagues and peers, you're open to growth. So you have that growth mindset. And so self-awareness is the key. It's the foundation to all of the other domains of it, emotional intelligence. So then when you have self-awareness, then it's moves on to self-management. So self-management is really about, how do I act? How do I do? So how do I manage myself in life, right? It's your life. How do you choose to manage it in the workplace? How do you manage it? How does it show up? If you're really good at time management, are you making those deadlines? Are you meeting them earlier? Are you creating goals and really changing behaviors and habits so that you can achieve those goals? And those show up a lot, of course, in workplace in different ways. Then on the other side of the coin, you have social competencies, which can be really critical when you are in a position of leadership, even if you're just leading yourself or you're leading one person, or also just working and collaborating with your colleagues and peers. Social awareness is the one where I am aware of what others are doing, what they're feeling, demonstrating empathy, really putting yourself in their shoes, identifying whether an employee seems really engaged, or maybe they're disengaged and you don't know why. So you're going to find out. Or you are in one of those multiple meetings and the energy just seems really low. We can probably identify, we're still in that recovery period after the pandemic, and now we're experiencing even more changes. So we have to take time and kind of read the room and see, do we need to pivot? Do we need to ask some more questions? Do we need to see where people are at? When you have social awareness as a leader, especially, you can make pivots. You can find out what's going on with people if they, again, become disengaged from engaged, or they're even actively disengaged. We can pick up on some of those cues, either verbally or non-verbally, if you're working in hybrid or remote, just paying attention to people and what's happening. Now, how you become better at that social awareness is how you manage your relationships. So every conversation you have with your colleagues, with your employees, your direct reports, your clients, it's about building those relationships. So it's having those conversations, asking those critical questions to find out where people are at. I know, some people have daily staff meetings where they check in and ask people, what's your rose, what's your thorn, if you've ever heard of that. Let me know, or if you actually use it in your staff meetings to kind of gauge the room. What is your rose mean? What's going well for you this week? What's your thorn? What's something you're not looking forward to, or something that's happened that hasn't really gone well? So some key things to kind of pick up on. But again, it can be so impactful in terms of our performance in the workplace and building those really strong and high-performing teams. So we're going to go kind of break down each one. So self-awareness, we already said, recognizing how we're feeling, why we're feeling that way, and the impact our behaviors have on others. And it's really the ability to see yourself clearly, to really understand who you are, how others see you, and how we fit into the world. So really knowing what you do well can really make or break a person. If you can think of back maybe when you started in your career, and maybe you weren't strong in knowing what your strengths or talents were, and maybe you're at the beginning stages of your career and you're just learning what are your talents and strengths. Once you know those, then you can communicate those to other people. Different work style, if you know how you do best in your work environment, What communication style you have can be so critical. Communication is really an integral part of emotional intelligence, how we're communicating with each other. When we're not really listening and understanding the messages, a lot of things can get lost in translation, a lot of mistakes can be made, misunderstandings, et cetera, et cetera. So self-awareness can really develop from that straightforward and honest understanding of what makes you tick. So you have to be willing to ask those people close to you for their feedback and their perceptions of you. And then from there, you learn what motivates you, what satisfies you, what are your triggers again, and what pushes your buttons. So this again is a foundational skill. When you have it, self-awareness makes all the other emotional intelligence skills easier to use. When you are self-aware, you're far more likely to pursue the right opportunities for you, know and put your strengths to work, and keep your emotions from holding you back. So an example in the workplace of maybe someone who doesn't have high self-awareness is maybe that employee who sometimes makes coworkers feel uncomfortable. Maybe in meetings they roll their eyes, or they make snide remarks, or they point their finger at people when they make mistakes. A person with high self-awareness, again, is that person who's able to receive feedback well, who's able to communicate how they do well in the workplace, what their strengths are, and how they're going to contribute to the overall success of the organization. So if it's sounding like maybe that's something you want to improve upon, and by no means is this a finite list, so give us your input as well. But ways to increase your self-awareness, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is slowing down. We are in such a fast-paced society. We're trying to keep up with the pace of technology, and we're not robots. So we have to take time for that self-reflection. Really great leaders and successful people really take that time out to self-reflect. What have I done well today? What could I improve upon? What feedback might I seek out? So slowing down, pausing, observing your day, observing any emotions that came up for you that day. If you're not aware of what all your triggers are emotionally, identifying those as they come up, knowing who to seek feedback from, who do you trust, who have you built a relationship with, and how do you respond to stress? Stress is going to exist in our workplace, but we don't want it to overwhelm us. We don't want it to impact us where we're overwhelmed, where it's impacting us physically, mentally, and we can't regulate our emotions. We want to be able to regulate that stress as it comes up and be able to find solutions to that stress. Although we are at an all-time high for stress and burnout in the workplace, which probably doesn't come as any surprise to any of you. Also, as we're distracted, as we're already probably thinking about what we're going to have for lunch today, trying to be in the moment, to be focused, to focus on one thing. I would encourage you to do that right now. Are you multitasking? No judgment, we all do it. But are you really paying attention? Are you really focused on what's being said? What are your surroundings right now? Are you comfortable? Are you distracted by your thoughts, or are you just relaxing and in the moment and able to absorb the information being shared? So take those moments throughout the day. It doesn't have to be, 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It can just be a couple of minutes where you need a little bit of time so that you can reflect, and maybe you'll pivot and change so that you can regulate your emotions. So some statements to consider if, again, this is something that you want to improve upon. Right now, I'm going to pay attention to how am I feeling? What does it look like in my body? Because our body is connected, right? Our body is always giving us indications of when things are going south, when our emotions are escalating, when the stress is taking over our body. So paying attention to those cues and clues. I'm using my gut or my intuition to make decisions, right? When we're low on our emotional intelligence, sometimes we will make decisions without thinking or processing. or analyzing or using some of the IQ. So our emotional brain, which is the limbic brain, and our rational brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, really need to communicate with each other to have to stabilize our emotional intelligence, right? They really need to communicate well because everything goes through our limbic brain. Everything that happens to us goes through our emotions before it gets to our rational. So how are we making decisions? If we're making rash decisions, maybe our two parts of our brain aren't talking to each other. Um, are you taking time to reflect on your actions? Are you open to doing that? And are you speaking positively about yourself, right? If you're thinking positively about yourself and how the day is going to go and what your strengths are and what you can achieve, then most likely it's going to happen. And the reverse is the same. If you think you're on low emotional intelligence, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can be successful, I'm very anxious and nervous how this is going to go, and I think it's going to go badly. It's more than likely to go a little bit south. So thinking positively about ourselves can really help increase that emotional intelligence and our ability to manage ourselves. So the next one in the personal competencies is self-management. So again, it's what you do. It's dependent on your self-awareness, and it really is revealed by your ability to tolerate the uncertainty. So this is kind of a huge test right now. Still going through a lot of change, a lot of uncertainty in our world. How do you manage that? How do you manage yourself? Is that a trigger for you? Do you like things to stay the same? Are you a person who likes a lot of routine and a lot of regular habits? Because we're in a point now of constant change and constant adaptability. So the more we can build our adaptability, our flexibility, be able to pivot, be able to think of new ways and different ways of doing things. And for you personally, what is it that you want to be able to manage better? We have a lot of managers, especially because we always say managers and leaders carry the heavy load. Not only are you managing your own responsibilities, duties, deadlines, but you're managing people. So how are you directing that? How are you self-directing your time? Are you getting overwhelmed? Are you able to delegate, or are you holding on and micromanaging and not allowing or empowering other people to take some of the load off of you, right? So being able to identify what is it that I need to change in order to manage myself the best way, and how it might show up in the workplace is, are others noticing that you're always late to a meeting, or you're just missing the deadline, or you didn't read through the email properly, or are the one that always gets things done on time and meets those deadlines and achieves those goals and really is able to focus. Now, again, for some people, this is their superpowers, right? They have that innate ability, but for others of us, we really have to make an effort. And again, it's changing habits and behavior. So if you are in the position of being a manager and you're looking at your employee who may be indicating that they are a little bit late to things or not meeting deadlines, and helping them change that behavior, coaching them, keep in mind that it's going to take time. It takes time to change habits and behaviors. It used to be okay, a good habit takes 21 days, 30 days. It takes as much time as it takes. And an individual has to have the motivation to change that behavior or habit. So helping and coaching, identifying, finding some ways that person can change, but they do have to have that initiative and motivation to do it. So some areas for improving with self-management is identifying what are the goals that are most important to you, most important in the workplace. Sometimes we don't communicate what is most important for our team this week, this day, and then anything can happen, right? Because we haven't identified that. So identifying what is most important that I get done this week or today. And then when you do that, when you're able to set those goals for the week, for the month, for the day, then you can prioritize them, and that can help you manage your time better. If you know I need to focus this much time of my day on this, then you have a clearer idea. If you just wake up every day and just let the day fall the way it falls, then you're not controlling your time you're not managing your time the best you can. So sometimes we get distracted by shiny objects and all the thoughts that are going through our brain. So taking control of those thoughts again, maybe it means taking a little bit of time to be in quiet, to get to work early, or if you're a night owl, maybe doing some work at night, if that's the way you work best, or where you can have some quiet time, because again, you may be inundated throughout the day by distractions or interruptions that are equally valid. So finding that time that really works for you, staying flexible though, not being hardcore on saying I need to be set in this routine, because we're always going to have new things come our way that may become a priority, and we may have to set aside those other projects for another time. And then also, again, when we've been reflecting on ourselves and how we've been doing, addressing what are the issues, what are the issues that I really do need to focus on, and what are the solutions that I can come up with or seek some input for. So then we move over to our social competencies. And as I mentioned, social awareness is really important, especially if you are in a position of leadership, to be able to pick up on the emotions of other people. And unless you're, sitting somewhere under a rock or in a cave writing your own biography, we're always working with people. We're always communicating with people. So it's really important to be able to adapt and gain some skills in terms of being able to listen and observe what people are communicating to us. And listening has become an art. We're losing the ability to listen really well. So listening for the point of understanding what the message is, not because we want to be able to respond to what's being communicated, but really understanding what that message is and being able to be in a room and pick up on when the energy is feeling low, what can we do to adapt or pivot, demonstrating empathy. I think we all recognized during the pandemic how important it was to ask people how they were. And because our work models have changed, many of us are in hybrid or remote work areas, sometimes we skip on that human connectedness of asking people how they're doing, seeing, what's going on in their lives. Well, how was their weekend? Just having that water cooler moment. So we have to kind of create those, especially if we are not face to face on a daily basis, creating those moments, making sure that we have regular check-ins just to see how we are doing. So ways to focus on improving that social awareness, if it is something that you think you could improve upon. And again, it depends on the size of the company, but there have been companies I've worked in where directors or people in the executive level that I saw on a regular basis never learned my name, right? They didn't greet me by name. And sometimes they didn't even greet me, even if they were walking by me, walking right in front of me in a meeting with me. Our names are our identity. So it can seem simple, but it's really important to know who people are, what they prefer their name to be, not calling them a nickname that you created, and really, really getting that human connection. Another one is when you are in a room, or if you're at least on video in a Zoom or Teams meeting, is watching people's body language. See how they are. If the meeting's going too long, people might squirm a little bit. When people have their camera off, it's really hard to read how people are responding, and they are able to focus on other things, so they might not be paying attention to all the conversation. So I always suggest and recommend having cameras on when you're in a meeting. And it's not natural for us to be on camera for long periods of time looking at each other. So when you can, keep the meetings brief so that you have people's full attention and it isn't lingering longer than it should. Just an additional tip is a lot of companies have transitioned to having at least one day a week where they have no meeting. So no meeting Monday, no meeting Friday. How does that sound to everyone? So that gives people the opportunity to actually get work done that they really need to do. Practicing that active listening, removing any distractions from the room, especially when employees are coming to you if you're in a position of leadership. By the time somebody's bringing up a problem, an issue, a challenge they might have with a coworker or peer, they've probably been having that issue for a long time. So it's so important that we are there, that we are present for them, so that we are giving them our undivided attention, and that we're truly understanding what their circumstances are. And then displaying that empathy. And again, for some people, empathy is a superpower. They can automatically put themselves in somebody else's shoes or sense that something is off with that person. But for others of us, we need to practice it. And the best way is to ask people how they're doing, right? Asking those key questions, not interrogating people, but really just asking, how are you doing? But it does take practice. And if it is something that isn't your superpower, really start paying attention when you're interacting with people, picking up on their body language. I'm going to put up a couple of images of people, and I want you to just observe. There's no right or wrong answer. Just observe their look. They're picking up on their nonverbal cues and clues. And in the chat, tell me what you think that person is either feeling or thinking. What do you think the situation is? So here's the first image. Let me know. What do you think that person is thinking or feeling or may? So this is your employee. You've been having a chat and something's going on, right? What are we picking up on? Let me know in the chat. Yeah, so crossed arms are always a signal of something, right? Sometimes it's a signal we're just cold, but a lot of you have the same where he looks a little annoyed, right? Something the other person has said makes him bothered, upset, potentially irritated, annoyed. So if we were just to keep talking over that, it may escalate, right? Because we're not addressing, wow, gosh, maybe I need to pause and really find out. Let's say his name is John. Hey, John, what's going on? I sense that maybe, did you not understand what I'm saying? Do you have something? Am I getting it right? Giving John an opportunity to really weigh in here. So really important to pay attention to that body language. Again, especially if it's something that may be of a sensitive nature, a delicate nature. Maybe we are giving John feedback on something that he's done. Maybe John is the one in the meetings that's rolling his eyes or making snide comments. And we want to be able to navigate that conversation so it doesn't escalate. So we want John to have the opportunity to communicate as well. So I think we're all kind of on the same page with this one, but it could just be John's thinking of something else that's making him annoyed. Maybe he's not focused. So we want to clarify. We want to be able, we don't want to just assume that John is irritated or annoyed, right? We want to make sure we're on the same page. And we also want to make sure that John is open to the feedback. So we want to give him an opportunity and again, create that two-way dialogue. We don't want a one-way dialogue. We want to hear the other person's perspective, the other person's opinion. So that can be a really helpful way to help you navigate the conversation, picking up on that body language. So here's another one. Guys did so great in the first one. What do you think? So we're paying attention to the female, and she's kind of looking at the papers. What do we think? So saying nervous, a little apprehensive, maybe hesitant, maybe anxious. Yeah, maybe she's waiting. She has a question and we haven't allowed her to ask that question yet. Maybe it's the performance review, which we at CEA know a lot of people, especially in positions of management and leadership, who are giving performance evaluations or feedback of any kind, are hesitant to do so because of this reaction, because it might make the other person hesitant or uncomfortable. So what are some of your tips? I would want to kind of put this on you guys because you have a wealth of experience. How would you make her feel a little bit more comfortable? If we're noticing that she's a little hesitant and nervous, anxious, what are some of your tips to make her a little more comfortable? So again, we can have that two-way dialogue, so that if it is performance related, so that she is open to the feedback, any insights that you have on that, because it is difficult to provide feedback, especially when it's constructive or something that may need to change performance-wise. We want that person to be as comfortable as they can be so that they're open to it, so that you can find solutions together to address that issue or that challenge. Now, again, it could be she's thinking of something else that happened right before the meeting. So giving her that opportunity to share that as well. Gosh, something happened right before the meeting, something at home. Maybe this isn't the best time to have this meeting because we both want to be in a good emotional space, right? We both want to be open to the conversation. So things to be aware of or just remind ourselves is now not only am I paying attention to myself, but I'm paying attention to others' feelings. They're picking up on their body language. Do I need to pause? Do I need to pivot? The conversation's going downhill by the look of things. I'm listening. I'm really paying attention, right? I really want to learn from that person. I want to understand what their message is. And if the person isn't communicating as much, asking some open-ended questions so that you can understand them better. And the more often we do that, then we're gaining some information, we're gaining knowledge about those people. And that's exactly what builds relationships. So the next one, relationship management, using our own awareness and our own emotions and those of others to manage our interactions successfully. So all relationships are built on every interaction we have with each other. So if we're not interacting with an employee who is our direct report, we're not going to know that much about them. So we need to build those relationships, communicate, learn from each other, learn that, because if we don't, we're going to default to assuming that everybody communicates like I do. Everybody has the same work style that I do. And that's not true at all. We're all different. We're all unique. We all have different styles and different talents and different strengths. So we want to learn that, especially as leaders, in order to be able to manage our employees the best way that we can. So building that rapport, especially if you're in remote and hybrid work environments, how can you connect with each other? How can you build that rapport? How can you establish that trust? Demonstrating empathy, really working on communicating effectively, being a good listener, being honest with your team, with your employees, with your colleagues, and getting to the point where you can give and receive feedback well. All of that, all of those 4 elements of emotional intelligence really apply to managing good relationships at work. So why is EQ or emotional intelligence important at work? Because you need to interact effectively with other people. And usually it's the unmet emotional needs that cause the majority of problems at work. So let's put up another poll. Just want to keep you engaged, keep you on target or not. Okay, this one didn't come up as a poll, but that's okay. You can either answer this to yourself or just in the chat, which aspects, after we covered all those 4 dimensions, do you think is most challenging for you at work? Is it managing your own emotions at work? Is it understanding how others feel, really having that empathy, or communicating with empathy, handling conflict constructively? When someone has a different perspective that is so different from mine, how do I stay calm? How do I stay neutral? Or just staying positive and motivated about the work that we're doing. So either of those, this can be to yourself, just again, that self-reflection, or if you choose to put it in the chat, that's fine too. But again, it really does matter at work because it can account to Here it says up to 58%. It can be up to 67% of performance in our jobs. Because if you think of those interpersonal skills, if you think of the ability to manage our emotions, to communicate effectively, to listen and really understand each other, that's a huge part of our performance, how we're interacting with each other, what are our employee relations, what is our engagement with each other. So it can be the biggest predictor of performance in the workplace and a strong driver of leadership and personal excellence. So it is so important to think, what am I bringing into the workplace when I come in every day? Am I making any impact? Am I making a negative impact on my employees or colleagues? Am I making a positive impact on employees? Or am I making no impact at all because we're not really talking to each other or communicating to each other? And of course, everybody ebbs and flows. We're going to have bad days, we're going to have good days because we're just human. But if you look at the average, are we making a positive impact on each other or those that you work with, or negative or no impact at all? So thinking about what are your triggers and how did you react, and did you bring it into the workplace? Because if you were driving to work and you were cut off in traffic and you come in and now you're having a bad day and now everybody feels it, right? It has that spiral or that domino effect. We don't want that because that can impact how people perform and how they get their best work done. Or if your computer crashed and you're not going to be able to use your computer, that affects us, and we might have it might be a trigger for us emotionally. We might get really angry, we might get really upset, and we might take it out on a person whereas they didn't have any responsibility in that. How about when someone jumps in front of you in line? How did you react? Did you bring it into the workplace? Did it spill over? Or your boss asked you to do something you really don't like to do. So really, observing your own emotions, and are you bringing them into the workplace on a regular basis, right? Not that initial moment where I just need a breather, I need a moment. We're all human, but if we keep bringing in that negativity, that has an impact on the people we work with. So to speak a little bit more to it, just some signs of low emotional intelligence at work could be lacking that empathy in interactions. If someone does bring up something that happened to them, that is, something happened to their dog, or they had to go to the doctor or something, and you're lacking that empathy, that impacts your relationship. That impacts how you work together. Or you have a coworker or colleague that you're frequently arguing with. We see at CEA where people stop communicating completely. They're interdependent on each other for getting their work done. So that can create a lot of issues. Dismissing others' viewpoints. Maybe you don't think they're as knowledgeable. Maybe you don't think there's experience. Maybe they're new to the job and you're dismissing them, and that's going to impact your relationship. Not taking responsibility for your own actions when you make a mistake, or not feeling you're in an environment where you can admit your mistake as well. Again, not connecting with each other. And you don't have to be best friends with people at work, but if you are interdependent on people, it's really important that you have a baseline of getting along and having a mutual common interest of accomplishing what it is you're setting out in your business. And then people who repress their emotions, right? We brush things under the rug and they will show up when they're not addressed. So some things we can work on with that, and being able to demonstrate empathy is, again, having those regular check-ins with people. And these are some statements you can look at if you don't know how to start, right? Acknowledging people's feelings, making sure we're really focusing, listening, and understanding. We're getting rid of the notifications, the distractions, and really focusing on what the other person is saying. Checking in to see, what are the stress levels like for your team? Is someone overloaded with work? Is someone underloaded and can help out? Really creating that sense of community on a team so that we are collectively working towards really demonstrating that emotional intelligence. So as I said, it's really important for teams because we're working a lot more together. We're collaborating on things within departments, outside of departments, with vendors. If you have boards that you work with, other people in the community. It's really important. So whatever team you have, you really want to build that EQ. So things you can do is set some ground rules. You may have established some ground rules or policies and procedures at your work when people just started, but people need to be reminded. And as managers and leaders, we need to set the tone, creating those opportunities where people can get to know each other, team building activities. Feel free to put a few in the chat of what you do to just, build the momentum, build the motivation, build the engagement for people. Asking for feedback, being of that growth mindset. I want to know. Most of us, when we're at work, we want to know how we're doing so that we continue to do what we do well and that we can improve in the areas that need to be improved upon. If we don't hear anything, then it's really hard for us to do our best work. And then creating that safe space for communication, really being aware of yourself and your own emotions and those of others. Again, the being present, the active listening, really being authentic, optimistic, seeking to understand. And sometimes, we are, especially in the United States, we are a society that really likes to get our comments out of our brain and into the room. A lot of us don't like that awkward silence when there's a gap, but sometimes it's okay to withhold your opinions or ask someone, would you like me to give you some feedback on that? And if things escalate, it's always okay to pause and revisit the situation if the emotions require that. And one of the biggest ones may be controlling anger. So again, this can come up. We're humans. We've had a bad day. We haven't eaten. Things just keep happening and happening and happening. I'm really upset. I'm angry. So before we say something or do something we're going to regret, just kind of going over and self-reflecting, taking a pause. Why am I angry? Is there an underlying cause? How is this situation making me feel? And why is this feeling so intolerable that I need to either lash out at someone or shut a door loudly or change my tone of voice? And by the time you get through those 3 questions for yourself, you've usually kind of diluted that anger a little bit, and now you can focus on, okay, what is the real issue that I really need to address and can do so in a more calm manner. And then part of this, working with other people, collaborating, communicating effectively, creating that that safe space for people, is setting some boundaries. We don't want it to get to that point where 2 employees aren't talking to each other, but we want to choose boundaries, not barriers, right? We want to be able to work together. So that can be first figuring out, how do you do your best work, and communicating that. I need a couple hours in the early morning that I can work on something solo, and then I can attend a meeting. Obviously, within reasonable expectations, but figuring out, how do you do your best work, and then taking your teammates' point of view and putting yourself in their shoes and making some agreements when you don't get along of what is the greater good. Where can we compromise? Where can I accommodate this person? Where can we give and take so that we can work together on a long-term basis and not make some rash decisions so that it's out of short term. And if you are one of those people that's really conscientious, really responsible, a real achiever, and you find yourself saying yes more than you do at work, more than you do no, sometimes you have to say no. And these are just some ways you can do it. Letting people know what you have on your plate, what your priorities are, when you can help them. Just letting them know that there are some other things that you're responsible for. And I say that because achievers and people who are super responsible, who really get things done, other people notice that. So they take advantage. They say, oh gosh, I see Anna's really meeting those deadlines fast. Let's give her another project and give her another project. And then we do get overwhelmed, and then we do get stressed out, and then we do get burnt out, and then our emotions do get triggered, and we say or do something we regret, or maybe it impacts us physically. So we don't want any of that for you. So benefits of emotional intelligence at work, obviously it can reduce our stress. When you have people who are aware who can self-regulate their emotions, who are asking for feedback or wanting to create that safe space for each other so that we can communicate effectively, where we're demonstrating empathy, we show each other we care, really showing our humanity with each other, and building that trust, building that respect. It's going to be a better place to work. When we're overwhelmed with the brushing things under the rug, that creates a lot of stress in work environments. So we want to be able to create that safe space, and by building our own emotional intelligence, that can have an influence, especially if you are the manager, the leader, the CEO, the owner. You set the tone, you set the example. So it can help us be able to resolve conflict, recognize that we are going to have different points of view, different perspectives. How do we get to the common root of the problem? How do we resolve it together? And so that increases productivity because people are feeling better about their work environment, their relationships with each other, which ultimately, hopefully, improves our health, lowers our stress levels, even though we're going to continue to have that ebb and flow. You know, it's just a natural part of our world, but we're all collectively able to manage those circumstances that are unexpected together. So bringing it all together, kind of giving a recap to this, knowing that everything we do involves our thoughts and feelings, and especially everything that happens to us goes through the emotional part, that limbic part of our brain, and before it gets to the rational part. So they really need to communicate well together. Your EQ can be improved on throughout your lifetime, unlike your IQ, which kind of solidifies in your early adulthood. So we can all be better. We can all develop that growth mindset and improve. And you can take assessments. There's one we use when we do trainings for companies with their employees. We have them do, it's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradbury. So you may look into that. It's a book that includes the assessment, so you can find out which of those 4 domains maybe you need to work on the most. Paying attention to your feelings, really taking time just to slow down will help you recognize what feelings are coming up for you. And overall, developing your EQ will not only improve your leadership abilities, your work environment, but it will also improve your own well-being and your performance in terms of what you want to accomplish and achieve in your career and outside of your career. So we always like to give a call to action at the end of these. So what is one area you think you want to focus on to increase your emotional intelligence? And what is one thing you learned today that you can apply immediately in the workplace that will help increase emotional intelligence? And on that note, I will pass it back over to Anna to close us out for this lovely Thursday morning, almost afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you, Keisha, for that amazing training. I love this one. I always get a new nugget every time, no matter how many times I watch it. So thank you again for leading us with so much amazing good energy. I do want to remind you of what is on the screen. Share your feedback with us. That is not a hyperlink, a QR code that you can click. And I'm also going to put a hyperlink into the chat for you for your convenience. That is where you can share your feedback about the training and also to suggest topics coming up. And on the topic of emotional intelligence, I do want to point your attention to the chat to an upcoming training series that we have that's actually going to be led in part by Keisha Hansen. This is the Mastering Interpersonal Skills series. It is a 4-part series running every Wednesday through July. Highly, highly recommended. We already have quite a few people signed up. We would really love for you to be a part of it. So definitely check that out for us. But if you are joining us for continuing education credits, those are on the screen now. HRCI code 708945. SHRM code 25-CZ29C. If you need some guidance with what to do with those codes, please always reach out to us, CEAinfo at employers.org, or you can always call that complimentary HR hotline provided by the County of Ventura. I do want to thank Ventura County for sponsoring today and the entire series of events and everything that you do for employers in your area. And thank you all for joining us live and being so participatory and engaged. And we look forward to seeing you on the next training and maybe in that Mastering Interpersonal Skills series. We'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.